Back live once again here on NFL Daily. Tom Downey, producer Chris behind the scenes for today's live show. Minicamps underway across the NFL. We'll take you through the latest NFL news and rumors out there. The biggest news of the day was the Christian McCaffrey extension. We'll break down the details of this, which it's not really $19 million per year as the new money value suggests, but good chance he doesn't see much of that new money. We'll break that down here in a moment. But grade the extension, A, B, C, D, or F for, I think, most people's number one back in the NFL. I think you're not going to find that many people who would take somebody else when he's healthy. And he's been pretty healthy in San Francisco. He is a truly dynamic piece, one of the exceptions to the rule about paying backs. Technically didn't work out for Carolina because they did trade him, so it's kind of just Derrick Henry that kind of made it through those contracts, but I think McCaffrey fits in that from an impact perspective. So grade the deal. A, B, C, D, or F. 73% say A, 14% say B, 11% say C, 2% say D or F. TK says B+. I think that's reasonable. A lot of A's, at least the pin poll side. Make sure to vote in the comment section there as well. Let's see what else we got coming in there. I see it's an okay. A, B, C, D, or F. Grade that Christian McCaffrey contract extension. With the way it's actually structured, I think it's an even better deal than the raw numbers suggest. We'll go more in depth on that here in today's show. Gavin Powell's giving it an A. Chiefs fan gives it a B. We will talk Trevor Lawrence, who is among many players looking for a big fat new contract from their respective teams due for a new deal. I'm very curious how these votes are. They're always very conflicted numbers and different numbers here. Rank Trevor Lawrence for me among NFL quarterbacks. What he is right now. Season begins today. You can project a bit, I guess, for this upcoming year if you want to. Where do you rank him? No one's going to say 1. I think even Jags fans wouldn't say 1. C Sporty says maybe top 20. Ecuador Man says better than Dak. That's not an answer though, Ecuador Man. Gotta give me the number. I mean, definitely top 20. I think it's closer to top 10 than he is top 20. Despite the numbers maybe not looking the greatest. Gavin says top 15. Another top 20 from Chiefs fans. 9th. I think that's pretty reasonable, Ecuador Man. I think I'm higher than most on Lawrence. He was playing really well until he got hurt. And people like to use, it's a very expensive supporting cast in Jacksonville. It is. Doesn't mean it's good. There's a lot of players that I don't think are very impactful at the contracts there. Kevin says among quarterbacks needing a contract, Trevor's number 1. Clever answer. Top 10, 12 to 15, 12, top 12, back-end QB1, like 10 to 12, between 10 and 15. I think somewhere in that range. I think we can haggle over some of those players in that category. I think healthy Kirk Cousins maybe goes in the back end of that category. Depending on how in you are on Jordan Love with what really amounts to a 10-game sample size of incredibly good play and like a 9-game sample size of like pretty mediocre play, probably somewhere goes in that category. So we'll discuss this more, what the contract looks like, because it's probably going to be really expensive. Because that guy in that 12 to 15 range, isn't Jared Goff kind of in that range too? And he just got how much per year? Yeah, going to be expensive. We'll also talk receivers. CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Ayuk holding out of mandatory minicamp. Would you make CeeDee Lamb the highest paid wide receiver ever? Y for yes, N for no. Y or N? Because you're going to pay him more than A.J. Brown, so you're already above $32 million. Would you stand firm on not going to 35 like the Vikings did for Justin Jefferson? Or maybe you go to 35 if they gave you an extra year on it. Y for yes, N for no. Orvelt says no. Chiefs fan says no. T-Buck says no. Epic Jet, Sparkplug, Sporty, Ecuador Man, Marhos all say no. True Allure says yes. It's the only one in there. Maybe the happy middle ground is $34.5 million per year. Maybe that's, and everyone's happy, and you give $100 million guaranteed, and then you get to the Jamar Chase conversation that'll come in not too distant future either. Gavin says no, C-Sporter. So mostly no's. Fairly unanimous on that front. Trey's got a good question about Lawrence taking less. Put hashtag NFL on that one, Trey, because I do want to get to that one in the mailbag, but it's got to have hashtag NFL so we can pull them up from that perspective. Also, I think a fun topic that we'll kind of get into more in depth probably in a future show. There's normally one, not always one, but normally one. What team will go from worst to first this year in the NFL? So from last place in the division to first place. Your options are the Patriots, the Titans, the Chargers, the Commanders, the Bears, Panthers, Cardinals, and I would argue maybe the best chance of happening, the Bengals. As good as that AFC North is, like they were a bad team even when Joe Burrow went down. A couple Falcons in there. The Panthers finished last in the division. So Falcons don't actually count. Although they are a very good answer for a team that didn't make the playoffs last year, most likely to make it from that perspective. Bengals, Bears, Giants. Giants were not last in the division, was the Commanders. But I don't know, the curse, in theory, knocks off the Cowboys from the NFC East repeat championship. So you got a chance, I suppose. Again, options are Patriots, Bengals, Titans, Chargers, Commanders, Bears, Panthers, and Cardinals. A lot of, I see Raiders in there. The Chargers were worse, actually. Which seems weird, right? Like, I don't think most of us would take the Raiders over the Chargers right now. Why? Makes some sense there. Bengals in there. Bengals. Popular answer is the Bengals, and I do tend to agree as I think the obvious pick. So use hashtag NFL or Super Chat to get on the show specifically for the upcoming mailbag here. You can use hashtag NFL. That puts you in the queue for producer Chris to find your questions, bring them up on screen, or Super Chat. Skip that line altogether, guaranteed to get on there. But get those hashtags in via NFL. Any questions, comments, even Tom's a big silly head is perfectly viable. Although producer Chris might not go to that one. So flattery is always appreciated, at least from his perspective. We are also always looking for a 50% like ratio. Keeps the audience numbers up. Continue to get some good success there. Can we get to that 50% like ratio? We're at 20, 30, 30-ish percent. We'll call it that. Help us out. Like today's video for me right now. Coming up on today's live show, we will break down the latest NFL news and rumors that are out there. We'll have a mailbag. Get your questions in, hashtag NFL or Super Chat, and a USA Today 2025 NFL mock draft for you. Some interesting picks in there I wanted to break down. All that coming up live here on NFL Daily. We've got you covered even in what is kind of a dead period across the NFL with news, rumors, trades, free agency, even draft stuff here on the channel. So don't miss out. Hit that sub button for year-round NFL coverage on YouTube. A lot of contract talk to get into on today's show. It is kind of contract season, so to speak. Trevor Lawrence, the Jags franchise quarterback, is due for an extension with Jacksonville with questions about when it's going to get done and for how much it ends up going for. Lawrence would, no surprise, like to have that deal done by training camp. I will make note Lawrence is present at voluntary OTAs, as pretty much all quarterbacks are. Lawrence saying, quote, I think it would be ideal just to put it behind us. Keep moving and feel good about that going into training camp. I can't always control all those factors, but I have the same job to do either way. Yeah, I mean, of course, that'd be ideal to get it done as soon as you can and kind of move forward. Now, the quarterback contract market is gangbusters, like everything is when the salary cap continues to rise by 10 to 20 to 25 to $30 million per year. No surprise, quarterback contracts also continue to rise. In fact, relative to the salary cap, beating Joe Burrow's $55 million is kind of approaching $62, $63 million per year right now. That's how much growth, inflation there has been. Yeah, I'm looking at the Jared Goff deal, right? $53 million as kind of the new floor raiser. It's not that far behind Joe Burrow. And if you're Trevor Lawrence, you go a 5-year deal, factor in the inflation, I can see a scenario in which Trevor Lawrence is the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. And I bet that Tua Tagovailoa's camp is asking for the same thing. That Jordan Love's camp is asking for the same thing. If there were any contract talks with the Cowboys in Dallas, probably some of them actually aren't contract talks right now. So probably ask for the moon and don't adjust until somebody gets that or takes a little bit less. What does matter here, more importantly, is the guaranteed money. Yeah, Goff's second in an average per year, but he's only sixth in guaranteed contract figures, well behind Hurts and Lamar and Herbert and Burrow, and of course the really weird outlier Deshaun Watson contract. I think relative to the immense hype for Trevor Lawrence, he probably hasn't lived up to it. It's also been 3 years. He was really good in 2022. He was playing great football until he got hurt in 2023, and the Jags as a unit kind of completely collapsed. I feel bad for Lawrence because Doug Peterson keeps trying to make Press Taylor a thing, and that's like fetch. It's just not going to be a thing. The first year in Urban Meyer was such a wash, you can't even really count it, I feel like. I would put Trevor Lawrence somewhere in at least the top 10 quarterback conversation. We can argue 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, whatever. But I think Lawrence kind of falls into the film watcher's quarterback, where there's a lot of really tough plays he's making, a lot of high-level throws, also has to stop fumbling so much. So there's a little bit of pros and cons mixed in there. And if you polled 10 NFL people who are smarter than us, Trevor Lawrence or Jared Goff, aren't at least half of them taking Trevor Lawrence? And at that point, doesn't it put the benchmark at $53.1 million per year? It's a lot of money. So rank Trevor Lawrence for me among NFL quarterbacks. It's a pinned comment on today's show. So if an ad comes, it's fine. Ignore it. Head down there and go vote where you rank Trevor Lawrence among NFL QBs. With Brandon Ayuk also absent from mandatory minicamp, the next receiver who's probably in line to get paid is CeeDee Lamb. He is not reported to Cowboys mandatory minicamp. That makes him officially a holdout, as he looks to get something near the Justin Jefferson contract. It might not beat out the Jefferson deal, which is $35 million. And unlike some of these other contracts, the Tyreek Hill deal, to an extent, the A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown deal, the Justin Jefferson deal is not fake. There's not a bunch of backloaded money kind of tied into the back end of it there. It's a legit $35 million per year with a massive jump in the guaranteed money. Significantly more than A.J. Brown, who's Jefferson gets $110 million guaranteed. Brown gets $84. The previous high entering this offseason was $75 million guaranteed. The range, I think, is pretty clear for CeeDee Lamb, both guaranteed-wise and AP and average per year. He's going to get more than A.J. Brown. It's a matter of, does he get just less or just more than Justin Jefferson? Lamb played incredible football last year. In many ways, he and Dak were the only reasons the Cowboys' offense moved the ball, period. Flashes from Jake Ferguson in a good way, the occasional Brandon Cooks play. Ground game was really bad in Dallas. Lamb had 1,749 yards. He's gotten better each and every single season. How long the contract negotiations take could be determined by if Dallas and Lamb agree on what the floor versus ceiling is relative to the Justin Jefferson contract. You're already pretty close to getting that highest paid receiver money. You're arguing over a couple $1 million per year at most. So would you make CeeDee Lamb the highest paid wide receiver ever? Y for yes, N for no. Other big angle here to consider is the average per year in terms of non-quarterbacks. Not an accident, Justin Jefferson got more than Nick Bosa. Same agent, by the way. Now, Jefferson did not get the same guaranteed money. Bosa's deal not quite as long, by the way, which does factor into some of the guaranteed structures there. But that's $110 million. Big, big money. These top-end offense linemen, Penei Sewell kind of pushing that market. Maybe Rashawn Slater gets in there soon, too. These receivers, by the way, Myles Garrett's due for a new deal in like a year and a half, by the way. They're going to continue to rise that floor because that's how the salary cap works when it continues to skyrocket each year. Today's show is made possible by PrizePicks. With PrizePicks, you can turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sport this summer. They are America's #1 fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. You can get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. The finals mean more on PrizePicks, and so do star players. You get boosted payouts on select basketball stars you won't find anywhere else, both for men's and women's. You can find some boosted payouts on baseball players as well. Here is my NBA final PrizePicks slate. I've got the free square, if you will, from PrizePicks on Jason Tatum, a half point. It's just going to happen. Kyrie Irving, more than 24 points. Make a revenge game back in Boston. And I like the way Derek Lively, the second's been playing. I think it's shaky-ish with Kristaps coming back from injury. Interior presence there for Boston. He's got 16.5 points, rebounds, and assists in 4 of his last 5 games. I like the more than as well. I like it. You can follow my PrizePicks slate by going to prizepicks.com/CLNS, downloading the app, and using code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It is that easy. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. The news of the day is the Christian McCaffrey extension, a 2-year, $38 million deal with the 49ers, $24 million guaranteed, by the way. Now, this is kind of a unique contract in that it's not as truly new money, and look at all this money he got with the way that this deal was left. In general, agents and players, they always use the new money value. I think that's normally fair. Specifically for this case, I do think we should look at how the contract is structured as a totality with it being an extension. McCaffrey had 2 years left on his old deal at $24.2 million over those next 2 years. He had $0 in guaranteed money. As my boy Chase Sr. called out, that was why he wasn't present at OTAs. He was looking to get a new deal. He has a new deal now. The $19 million in new money average does drop down to 15.55. Still number one, but not by nearly as much over the pure new money averages. Only $24 million is guaranteed. So what the Niners have done is basically guaranteed McCaffrey's salary over the next 2 years that was already kind of due to him, tacked on some big money in the next 2 years, and still giving themselves outs if they need to, not after this year, but after next year to move on, and also free up short-term salary cap space they can roll over or give to somebody like Brandon Ayuk. So I think the structure of it is actually pretty interesting, and not as, wow, $19 million for a running back. It's a little bit fake. And the final year of that contract for Christian McCaffrey, there's a very real chance he does not see very much of it. Like, the base salary that year does kind of significantly jump. His cap hits $27 million. They can save pretty much all of that, and I don't think there's actually much intention to keep him on the roster without another extension at that time. They'd be able to save after June 1st of that $27 million by cutting him all but $5 million. That'd be all the dead hit that's left if you post June 1st him. So they've got flexibility to move on if they need to after the 2 years, and they free up cap space in the short term. So with that in mind, grade the Christian McCaffrey extension, A, B, C, D, or F in the comments section. Bleacher Report has gone through and named one player each NFL team should consider trading before the season, and one of the few quarterbacks on that list was the Titans quarterback, the backup quarterback, Malik Willis. Here's the pitch from Bleacher Report. Frankly, Willis deserves at least some glimmer of an opportunity, and that isn't coming in Tennessee. In a league where quarterbacks are king, his talent alone is worth another roll of the dice. And a draft pick is more valuable to the Titans than gluing Willis to the bench or relegating him to the practice squad. I get where they're coming from. I would also say, where is that opportunity coming? I honestly don't know. I would argue it is fair to say that Malik Willis has been a disappointment, that he has not remotely lived up to expectations. I don't think he's played well enough over the course of his NFL career, and I think some of the developmental lack of growth we've seen is very concerning. Willis has athletic ability. He has a good arm. It's not often I see a quarterback who is going to have success that just will not attack the middle of the field. You saw it in the preseason sometimes in regular games. Why Mike Vrabel didn't like him, I felt like at times. Got to take the throw that's there. Willis at Liberty didn't attack the middle of the field. He was almost like just unwilling to do it. And that profile does not work in the NFL. I think that is a very real red flag for teams. Although I do think Bleacher Report's right. He's not going to get a shot in Tennessee. It's the Will Levis show all the way through. Mason Rudolph is the veteran backup. Willis, I think, will play plenty in the preseason. Maybe he looks really good, and maybe it's a showcase scenario, or you keep him as the emergency third quarterback or something. I have my doubts about who's going to make a trade for him with the way the quarterback situation is across the NFL. Yeah, there's some talent, but is it ever going to get unlocked? You got to invest a lot of time, I think, to unlock it, and you're not going to invest the draft capital to make that time worth it, you know? So what should the Titans do with Malik Willis? T for trade or K for keep? If you can find a trade partner, sure. You know, at that point, it's recouping your losses since you've invested more and are going to devote all your time to Will Levis, as you should be doing, by the way, if you are the Tennessee Titans. Arm talent's there. Athletic ability is there. It's not just those two things, though, as well as it might end up making it work in Madden or whatever. I think there's a lot of processing stuff that has to be developed. I think the best case for Malik Willis is he goes somewhere where he can be like a backup. You know, I think a place like Baltimore could be a great fit for him. Fits behind Lamar Jackson, can be a mobile quarterback as a backup, but you would want to go somewhere where the veteran presence is established and you get time to kind of be brought along and developed. But you know, if you're flipping, let's say it's a 5th or a 6th round pick. You know, if that doesn't happen quickly, well, the regime did not invest that much in you. To an extent, I think that's why Daniel Jones has lasted as long as he did in the NFL. It's allowed him to kind of hang around because that was a 1st round pick, so that was a big contract investment. DJ was a 6th round pick. He wouldn't have had the same chances. Similar with Desmond Ridder, same class, by the way, got moved on from. Arizona could have been a decent fit, by the way, for Willis too, to learn behind Kyler Murray and grow. I just don't know what team that will potentially be. Speaking of Arizona, I actually didn't mean to do that as a transition, but it worked out well. Bleacher Report put them on the list of, they should trade away Budda Baker. Baker, meanwhile, says he'd like to stay in Arizona for at least as long as possible. Now, Baker is in the final year of his contract. He's owed the 1 year, $15.1 million left on that contract. I don't think any team wants to trade for that right now without Arizona eating some of it, or maybe come deadline time it becomes more palatable. Here's the pitch from Bleacher Report, then we'll break down what Baker had to say. Arizona may have to eat some of his salary, but a contender hit by an injury in camp might be willing to part with a day 2 pick in 2025 to get Baker this summer. That's as well as the Cardinals would do with the comp selection. So if that offer comes, Monty Ossenfort has to seriously consider it. Me being here, and this is what Baker said, by the way, recently at OTAs, et cetera, for Arizona. Me being here 7 years this year, and of course you would love to be on a football team that drafted you too. I know it's not the same GM or it's not the same head coach, but I understand if I continue to do my job at a high level, this is our 4th coaching staff, and I'm still on the team. It shows the type of character I have and what kind of work ethic I put onto the field no matter what. Baker's numbers did dip last year. Now, injuries were a big part of that. As he continues to age, maybe you're not going to get that, closer to prime 2020 campaign version of Budda Baker. He's still a good safety, though. So whether it's in Arizona or somewhere else, I think he'll still be starting next season and even beyond that. I think he'll be one of the more potentially intriguing, if he doesn't get an extension done in the near future, players available next offseason. It is mailbag time here on NFL Daily. 2 ways to get on the show. You can use hashtag NFL or Super Chat to skip that line altogether. I'm going to sip some water here real quick because, 16 minutes of talking tends to, not leave the palate as moist as some people prefer it is there. People don't like the word moist, by the way, Chris. Have you ever noticed that? I honestly don't get it. Like, it's not... Why is that? I don't know. Whatever. 2 ways to get on the show then. Hashtag NFL or you can skip that line altogether by super chatting. You use the hashtag NFL, gets you in the queue, gives you a chance, and with limited people, kind of a decent chance. Or you have to actually put in the super chat, and that's a guarantee to get on the show. So do we have the Twitter L3 there? It's fine. We'll skip it then. If you have not already, please follow me on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney. My DMs are open. I would appreciate it if you sent me actual NFL questions. That way I don't have to deal with all the in-bio bots that populate Elon's platform constantly these days. Got NFL questions? Did not get to the mailbag? Hit me up at WhatGoingDowney. From Trey Lawson, do you see Trevor taking less money to keep a solid supporting cast around him, as some reports say? No. That's not how NFL players are doing things these days. And the only time it really happened was at the end of Brady's career. That's the only time it's really happened. Because remember, when Brady was first getting paid, he was still taking top money. It was later on. And I think as you get into second and third contracts, you might see some players start to do that stuff. But look, is Lawrence going to take less than Jared Goff? If he does, that is taking less, as much as $52.5 million might not seem like it. In the end, it is not the player's responsibility to make it so that the team is still good. There are multiple avenues NFL teams can and do pursue to make that happen. So I would, that's the right PR thing to say, but it's up to the team to and they can do it, and they will do it, to make it so they can pay Lawrence what he's worth, etc., and still build a decent team. Omar's burner. Tom, were you happy to see the rumor of CeeDee Lamb to Steelers? It's not going to happen. I get that Steelers fans want a receiver. I don't blame you. I would be trying to find one as well. I would not anticipate a Brandon Ayuk, a CeeDee Lamb, a superstar receiver being traded to Pittsburgh. I think some of those Steelers media members have maybe, more the radio hosts, have probably set up some unrealistic expectations there. Lamb's not going to Pittsburgh. I'll drop 2 toasters in the tub if that happens. Alex, are all these quarterbacks really worth the money? Dak, Love, T-Law, Goff. Also, the guys that have been paid are going to pay too, are probably in that conversation too. Honestly, yeah, I'm fine with paying it. Packers fans don't know what it's like to not have a borderline Hall of Fame quarterback, so maybe not the right ones to ask. That's Jags fans. Hey, do you want to go back to trying to find the Blake Bortles era type guys? That's Lions fans had Matthew Stafford. That's Dolphins fans. Hey, want to try going back and trying out a bunch of different John Becks and seeing if it's good enough, and you can build a roster around the cheap quarterback. For most NFL franchises, in fact, almost all of them, the knowledge of having, hey, we have that top 10 or fringe top 10 quarterback is better than going into the unknown and going, we'll see what happens. It's fine paying those guys, backload their contracts so they're not taking up big salary cap hits early on, i.e. don't do what Dallas is doing this year with Dak Prescott, by the way. And then, hey, great, it worked out well, or it didn't work out, then you restart the rebuild. Because what you frankly don't want to do is what the Commanders did. Commanders had a fringe top 10 quarterback in Kirk Cousins. They didn't want to pay him. They let him leave. And they have never been as good since he left. They had the one NFC East injury-decimated year that hardly counts. They've been shuffling through average at best quarterbacks, regimes getting fired left and right, and ownership getting replaced, which is kind of different. And then they're trying to, maybe Jaden Daniels will work. And they very well might. Had to tank out and get that whole staff fired to do that. That's not what the current staff wants to do. So I frankly am paying. I'm okay paying the market rate. Because if you do it early, it doesn't last very long as a top 10 highest paid quarterback. So are you comfortable paying that quote-unquote market rate? You're getting the fish at market rate price. Do you pay it? Y for yes, N for no at the pinned comment. Gavin Powell, what do you think the Darius Slayton contract from the Giants is going to look like? It's a good question. Slayton, I would actually argue, is maybe it's just because it's the quarterback situation and is where he was drafted. You guys realize that he's put up at least 700 yards in 4 of his 5 seasons in the NFL? He's actually been very productive and consistent as a vertical threat. He'll get you right about 15 yards per catch every season. How much you pay that guy, I don't think it's going to be Christian Kirk money. Can you settle in at like $15-ish million per year? Maybe that's the high end of it. But he's kind of in that middle class. And the Giants are, I think, going to move on from Daniel Jones, so they'll save some money there. But the middle class, much like real life, tends to get a little bit squeezed when you got big time contracts handed out there for various teams. That's a good question, Gavin, but I think I put the ceiling at about $15 million. C Sporty, what do you think the Niners will do with their wide receiver situation? Who will they keep? I think that they're going to try to pay Brandon Ayuk, and I think at some point, maybe closer to August, that deal gets done. And then within a year, assuming they pay Ayuk, Deebo Samuel's on his way out. Whether it's via trade, release, whatever. And then they keep Ricky Pearsall, they keep Jacob Cowing, they keep Juwan Jennings, who I like, and that's kind of your top-end receiving core. And you kind of got some guys, Jennings, who can do some underneath stuff. Cowing can be kind of an undersized, dynamic playmaker if he stays healthy, etc. And I think can be used more downfield than he was this past couple of years at Arizona because he was used downfield at UTEP. And guys like Danny Gray get moved on from this offseason. That requires to pay Ayuk. I think that does happen. They have the money if they want to because they'll be paying Ayuk and not paying Deebo. Timing works out pretty well there. But I think this time next year, one of those guys, Ayuk or Deebo, will not be on the 49ers. Now, speaking of rookies like Ricky Pearsall, the rookie jerseys are available for your favorite NFL team. Everyone except Marvin Harrison still. Chatsports.com/NFL jersey takes you right into the Fanatics site for all the jerseys. You can then find your favorite team. The official numbers are up there where available. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. It's chatsports.com/NFL jersey. Again, over there on the bottom right, you all see a clickable link as well. Just got to sort by your team or search for your player to find them because it's got all the jerseys up there. So there will be a lot of them. Sean Walsh, will anyone take a chance on Michael Thomas or is his career over? I think somebody will take a chance on him. I don't know who that will end up being. I think somebody's gonna sign him. I would keep my expectations low. He has been unable to stay healthy, and he has not been very impactful when he has been out there, if we're being honest. Corey Childs, do you think the Steelers can use a two-quarterback system? I don't think so. That's not to say that there won't be a package for Justin Fields to utilize those legs and that arm strength, etc. But I think that Russell Wilson will be the starter, quote unquote. I also don't think gonna see a full-on slash roll for Justin Fields, but we'll see how things materialize. I think it's going to be a developmental year and go from there. Epic Jet. What big-name players think will be a trade candidate before the season or by the trade deadline? Guys like Jonathan Allen, Matthew Judon, one of the holdout wide receivers. I don't think the receivers are going to get dealt. Maybe one of Ayuk or Deebo. I think Deebo would make more sense, but I don't know if the value is going to be available there, at least from the Niners' perspective. I think if a player like Matthew Judon, if the Patriots are bad come trade deadline time, that's someone that starts to make sense. Like, is he going to be there long term? You get some assets back. And the kind of under the radar angle, it allows you to spend in free agency. I think that the Commanders, to an extent, kind of understood the assignment. If they had just let Chase Young walk in free agency, saying, you can get a third of the comp pick, it would have actually been canceled out by all their spending. So if you have the long-term vision and hey, we're gonna be spending money in free agency after we have a down year, better off trading him, get the pick now, and not getting it canceled out via your spending in free agency. Now I think Allen stays. Maybe there are some more pieces in Carolina that end up getting shipped out. I think Miles Sanders is available if anyone wants that contract. But someone like Judon could be a good name to monitor. From Stevie, how about a Tyler Lockett trade? It's doable after June 1st. I kind of think the Seahawks regime wants to let DK and Lockett and Jackson, Smith, and Jigba go for one more year. Have them all play together. It's a really good receiving core. Helps them evaluate. It is a new regime to an extent. Obviously, John Schneider's still there. But evaluate Geno Smith. And if he has to play, evaluate Sam Howell as well. Who do you think, because I think Seattle's a decent answer here. Who do you think has the best wide receiver room in the NFL? Drop that team name for me in the comments section right now. You mumbled Dolphins over there, Chris? That's a good answer. My boy Malik Washington's great, by the way. That's why I had a top 80 grade on him. Ethan, see the Chiefs making any more new moves this offseason? Yeah, putting Rashee Rice on the reserve suspended list. That's mean. Maybe probably more minor moves. Like the big splashy move, I don't think so. But there'll be various, shuffling out back of your roster guys. I wouldn't anticipate another big addition. Christian, Cowboys, championship game this season. No, I have no faith in them. How can you? They didn't do anything to get better from where they ended the year. They only lost players and brought in an old linebacker and a washed back. Sorry, Zeke fans, I'm right deep down. If they get lucky, sure. If we're being honest, they have not had good playoff luck at all. But until this team actually does it, I don't know why anyone would actually have belief in them. Winning 10 games, going to the playoffs, sure, that's what they always do. Making it further than they have in 28 years, I have my doubts there. We'll have more NFL coverage for you, including these mailbags, right here on the channel. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/@chatsportstv. From Sean, did the chain gain hurt or help improve the game? Like everything, it depends on the implementation. It's done right, I think that could absolutely help. Put the really dialed in chips ball. There actually are chips in the ball, by the way, and on the shoulder pads, but they're not quite minute enough to figure out where it actually is from that big of a distance size there. They'll eventually make that move, but implement it properly. Don't rush into it. Gavin Powell, could the Giants trade for Budda Baker? I'd be a little bit surprised if the Giants didn't want to pay Xavier McKinney, or at least didn't pay Xavier McKinney, and then paid and traded and paid for, because in theory you're going to pay him, otherwise why trade for him early before the year begins, an older version after drafting Tyler Nubin in the second round this year. And by the way, Jason Pinnock, low-key, played really well for them last season. So I think no on that front. Mason, saw some media think a Davante Adams trade should happen. Thoughts? To recap some of the pitches involved here involving Davante Adams, it's, hey, the Raiders are probably not going to be a playoff team this year, which is fair. The way his contract is structured, he's got a $44 million cap hit next year. They're not going to pay that. They got to do something now. They don't actually have to. You could simply restructure the contract, and wouldn't it make sense for a team, by the way, that as we look ahead to how it's probably going to pay out or look long-term over the salary cap when you're not really paying next to anything in cap for the quarterback, for a team that should have a significant amount of salary cap space coming up this time next year, they're going to have plenty of money to spend if they so choose. Wouldn't it make sense to kind of go all in to get your quarterback and then restructure or extend Davante Adams and have him in place? I think Adams' presence is not about a short-term thing for the Raiders. It's a long-term play, even though he is a little bit older. So no, I don't think an Adams trade happens. Plus, if he wanted out, it would have already happened. So name a player who you think ends up getting traded. Drop that player name for me in the comments section right now. Richard Iacocco, what right guards the Bears get for free agents if Nate Davis can just skip practice, if they trade him or cut him? That's a good question. Could you try like a Larry Borum there? I don't hate that idea. Maybe you just put Ryan Bates at right guard and let Coleman Shelton be your center. Don't hate that idea. It's not a great free agency group, so you're kind of thin on options there, if we're being honest. Mark, who wins the quarterback battle in New England? I would not be surprised if Jacoby Brissett starts week 1. I think the Patriots are taking a longer-term view of this, and they're not going to force Drake May into the starting role. I would be shocked if probably after the bye, or at minimum by the end of the year, if Drake May's not starting. Because I get there are benefits to having the guy not play. I think there's more benefits at some point in year 1 to putting him out there and letting him go. Let's not do a Tyrod Taylor, Justin Herbert thing where they were just not doing it properly, and it required Tyrod Taylor being stabbed in the lung by the team doctor to get Justin Herbert field. At some point, you will see Drake May out there. Now, what team will go from worst to first this year in the NFL? As a reminder, the options are as follows. The Patriots, who we just mentioned, these teams finished last in their divisions, mind you. The Bengals, the Titans, the Chargers, the Commanders, the Bears, the Panthers, the Cardinals. If I were to rate them, I would go Bengals 1. Chargers might be the next best team, but that path is really tough. I'm going to go Bengals, Bears, Chargers, Commanders, Panthers, Patriots, Cardinals. Titans ahead of the Patriots then. Patriots have Bills and Dolphins in that division, and Jets, it's going to be really tough in year 1 to actually win the division. I think the Chargers are probably the second best team in that group if things go right, but Chiefs in that division that's tough to pull off. Bears depends on which Jordan Love shows up. First half of the year, they can win that division. Second half of the year, Packers did it again, which would honestly really bother me because it's not fair. It's not fair. So what team will go from worst to first this year in the NFL? Go ahead and sound off for me in the comments section of today's show. USA Today has dropped a new 2025 NFL mock draft, so we are here to break it down for you. The order is their order. It's the Super Bowl odds stuff, blah, blah. Don't read too much into it. We'll discuss the players and the fits as well. We actually, for my original mock draft, the way to the version, had the same number one overall pick here. It's James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. I sent this to Matthew Peterson, our Titans fan here, an alum, and he got mad at me for putting Pierce at number 1, saying it was rat poison. It's just not fair. I can't do anything right. I love James Pierce, but I'm too high on him still, and you don't want the hype. So I can't be low on him, can't be high on him. Make it make sense. I think he's a great player, though. I do like Luther Burden a lot out of Missouri. Is he really going to go number 2 overall? I don't know. But the talent's really intriguing. I think kind of makes the Missouri quarterback look a little bit better than he actually is. Like the talent there. In theory, it's the number 1 receiver for Drake May. And, spending your first pick on a young quarterback and then spending more assets on him after an offensive draft last year, always down with that plan. Now, do you enjoy our way too early 2025 NFL draft videos, the prospect rankings, the mock drafts? If you do, type in Y for yes. If you don't, believe in democracy, type in N for no. Denver, as a Garrett Bowles replacement, takes Will Campbell out of LSU. Yeah, that's not an issue for me. Getting a potential franchise left tackle number 3 overall. Love it. So I'll preface this by saying I do like, I believe it's pronounced Deion Walker, though he's got some stuff that says like Day One Walker, which is kind of a fun nickname too. This makes 0 sense for Tennessee. They just huge human being, great athlete, moves so well, makes no sense for Tennessee. They have paid Jeffrey Simmons, and they just drafted Tavondre Sweat in the top 40. Taking another defensive tackle, I don't get it. Weird fit that makes no sense to me. Great player, though. Carson Beck to the Giants. You ask the majority of NFL draft analysts, I think they take Beck, or at least the plurality of them. But it's not a great quarterback class. But if the Giants have the number 5 overall pick and they haven't signed somebody actually good in free agency or traded for somebody, and they might be taking quarterback this year. Wide open QB1 race, though. More on that in a little bit. Texas offense tackle Kelvin Banks to Washington. Like that fit a lot. Protect your franchise quarterback in Jaden Daniels. Another wide receiver, Teteroa McMillan. He is a massive human being. You might have seen the highlight reels of like the outside the frame catch that he shouldn't be able to make. He finds the catch radius is absurd. The body control is really good for somebody that large. Now, would Arizona really spend back-to-back top 8 picks on a wide receiver? Is Matt Millen running this organization? I don't know about that, but it's a fun duo with Marvin Harrison. Fun, at least. Michigan's defensive tackle Mason Graham goes to the Vikings. That would make a lot of sense to me. DT's a big need for Minnesota. Trade down might happen because they've got like no picks next year. But that is a logical. Talent is top 10 worthy in the Waits early version, knowing things can and will change, and it fits a need. The Raiders take Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado. The circus that will inevitably follow the Sanders family around is a valid question mark. I actually like Shedeur a lot as a prospect. This ESPN hype from last year of guaranteed top 5 pick, guaranteed number 1 pick, straight up not true. It's just not, and I'm curious when Mel drops his new big board if he stands by that or not, or if he kind of backs off a little bit. But there's talent there. But also, fair or not, got to win more games than 4. And you're going to have a tough time taking a quarterback top 10 that won like 8 games at the FBS level in 2 years. That's going to be tricky. Who do you think is quarterback 1 when it's all said and done for 2025? Sanders takes fewer sacks, better deep ball with middle stuff. Could very well be QB1. Sound off with the pinned comment of today's video. LSU's Harold Perkins here goes to Seattle. You're going to get Micah Parsons comparisons. I don't think that's actually fair. I am hopeful for what the initial version we saw of Devin White was and become a better coverage player as well. He is a bit of a hybrid. I think off-ball linebacker is his bet fit, though. But you can blitz him, too, kind of like Anthony Barr a little bit from that angle. I do think this is about the right range for Will Johnson here. Off the board, number 11 to the Saints. Really good cornerback. Was kind of an instant impact player early on in his career for the Michigan Wolverines. Hey, you might not have Marshawn Lattimore. I get that. You have Alante Taylor, you have Paulson Adebo, and you have Kool-Aid McKinstry, though. Those are all like top, I think Adebo was like a top 80 pick, 85 pick. Another one? Again, I'm not sure that the need value matches up there. I do think the need value aligns for Benjamin Morrison. Between Will Johnson, Benjamin Morrison, and Travis Hunter, who we'll get to here in a little bit, the cornerback class at the top is very intriguing with top-end talent. Nick Scorton, the Purdue to Texas A&M transfer, very talented football player, had a really great year for the Boilermakers. Coming to see how he plays in the SEC. Again, I think that the range is fine. They just drafted Liatu Latu, though. They had they've got top 55, I think it is, picks from 2021 in Kwity Paye and Deo Odengbo. They signed Samson Ebukam. Another first-round pick at edge. I get the player. Did we commit the amount of time to going through what are the needs for this team? I'm not so sure. Now, you can go to PrizePicks.com/CLNS, download the app today, and get a first deposit match up to $100. What is PrizePicks, you say? You should be paying attention for a long time. I've been a long-time sponsor here at Chat Sports. It is America's #1 fantasy sports app. Over 5 million active members. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. There is always action on PrizePicks, and this is the perfect time to try out something new as basketball is winding down. You've got men's and women's plus baseball. You can even try esports, by the way. And make sure to try out esports this month because every Wednesday and Saturday in June, if your lineup does not win, you'll get your entry fee back. That's Counter-Strike 2, Call of Duty, League of Legends, and more. You can also do NFL season-long PrizePicks. Now, I'm taking the more than on all of these guys because you're kind of already factoring in the injury risk. The numbers there, Mahomes passing yards, Dak passing yards, CeeDee Lamb touchdown catches, Micah Parsons sacks, all numbers that were less than what they got last year. They'll get there if they stay healthy. So go to PrizePicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Link will be in that comment section and the description of today's show. Steelers take Quinn Ewers here out of Texas. I am not going to put in my first-round mock drafts right now. I just can't do it. There's talent there, don't get me wrong. But from a statistical perspective, the deep ball is not. And you can't make it in the NFL if you don't have a good deep ball. It's just not going to work. And we made big deals about, hey, does Bo Nix push the ball downfield enough? Does J.J. McCarthy? They got way more deep ball success than Quinn Ewers does outside of one good game against Alabama, despite having two of the fastest receivers in college football, a seam-stretching tight end. He had terrible success rates beyond 20 yards. That's got to be fixed. It has to be. The hype and the name brand is there. The film was not for me. I hope he gets better this year. I really do. It'd be fun to have the Texas's back tweets every week as a yes for me. But I got to see more work there. Not to mention the footwork. It's personal, but I can't stand it. A little surprised Travis Hunter went 15 here. I'm going to limit him as an athlete. I think he can play both corner and wide receiver. I think he's that good. Now, arguments over where he plays, sure. I think he's good at both spots. I think he's really good. Like, of all the Colorado players and coaches, this is the one I'm like, yeah, put Travis Hunter on my team. Cornerback, wide receiver, little of both. I think it works. Malachi Starks, the safety out of Georgia, probably is safety one for most people as we sit right now. Decent potential need for Jacksonville. Don't mind that one at all. It's really like, I think he was the best defensive back for Georgia this past year, and they had some guys go early. But hey, how do you value a safety in the modern day NFL when it comes to round one? And also, how do you value a tight end? Colston Loveland is the pick here to the Browns out of Michigan. I think he would have been the consensus tight end too had he been eligible. Might have snuck in the back end of the first round. Njoku, if the Browns wanted to, they could move off him after this year. I'd be a little bit surprised if they did because there's not that much cap savings. But looking ahead, be a pick for the short-term tight end too. They use two tight ends in that organization after all. So it's actually a pretty decent fit, I believe. Tacario Davis, who I actually appreciate. I think it was Doug Farrar who wrote this one for you the other day. I like him putting in these Arizona boys. I think I'm higher than most on him. They got some damn good football players, and Davis certainly is one of them. My only concern here, Jalen Johnson, Tyreek Stevenson, and Kyler Gordon. 3 first or second round picks a corner. Who are you out on? Maybe I'd have more interest in taking a pass rusher here if I were the Bears. Chargers take Ollie Gordon. This would kind of be a Jim Harbaugh pick, wouldn't it? Add to the running game, right? Ollie Gordon was highly productive this past year, winning the Doak Walker Award at Oklahoma State. 285 carries for 1,700 plus yards, 6 yards per touch, 21 TDs. Big boy at 6'1", 211 listed size, but he's very talented. Abdul Carter out of Penn State. You might actually see some more Micah Parsons comparisons here for the Penn State boys. They've got some very talented players on this upcoming roster for them. Houston, I think, actually could be in the market for some more pass rush help. Opposite Will Anderson, they did pay Daniil Hunter. He's probably not going to be there super long term. We'll see about Dylan Horton. Adding a better third and Carter short term and your long term too, I actually do think is very intriguing. He might be the better Micah Parsons comp given the linebacker to edge kind of switch that's happened there. Like this fit a lot for the Jets. Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State to the New York Football Jets. They need another receiver. They kind of have undergone some change there. And why not just make it the Ohio State wide receiver core? Garrett Wilson and Emeka Egbuka, put them together and let Aaron Rodgers or whoever the quarterback is have some success. I will have more NFL YouTube videos for you right here on the channel, so do not miss out. Hit that sub button right now. Jabbar Muhammad, number 22 here to the Atlanta Falcons. He was at Washington. He's transferred to Oregon, and he will be in the first-round pick conversation, I think, for really the entire time here. This could be your opposite starter, alongside A.J. Terrell. No complaints. Good pick there for the Falcons. I have complaints about this pick. I know it's a way too early mock draft, and we should care more about the players and about where they go. Another friggin' pass rusher for the Dolphins. Jalen Phillips, first-round pick. Bradley Chubb, they traded a first-round pick for him. Chop Robinson, first-round pick. They signed Shaq Barrett, but only for a year. They drafted Muhammad Kamara in the 5th round. Another first-rounder in Jack Sawyer, who, by the way, I think is actually the worst of the two pass rushers, which is also still a very good player, don't get me wrong. It doesn't make sense for Miami. I don't get it. Green Bay takes JT Tuimoloau here, so we're on a bit of a Ohio State run of playmakers. Look, Green Bay actually very well could be in the market for another pass rusher. Rashawn Gary's not going anywhere. They also spent a first-round pick on Lucas Van Ness to eventually replace Preston Smith, but you're a little bit thin beyond that, so it's fine. But, like, come on, guys. Why not a corner? Corner is a bigger need for them. Frankly, I think you would have been able to easily convince me to just flip it to Cario Davis and JT Tuimoloau here. You do that, I think the mock's way better. I like Kevin Winston, the safety out of Penn State. If you've watched our Cowboys coverage over the years, you know that I love safety play. I think he's a good football player. He's a great tackler, offers some coverage ability. Safety's not a need for Dallas right now. Unless they play bad, you don't have a quarterback under contract next year. Literally zero. You need running back help. You need receiver help. Safety? Really? By the way, it's going to be 3 safeties in round 1. When was the last time that happened? Now, I do think a kind of decent sleeper pick here for a team that always loves throwing assets at the pass rusher spot. Ashton Gelati, low-key, had 11 sacks last year for Louisville. Do you need another pass rusher with Josh Sweat and Nolan Smith, at least Josh Sweat for now, and Bryce Huff and Jalix Hunt? I don't know, but they at least always do it, so I'm fine. Lions at 27. Another first-round pick on a running back? Another one? Even if you cut David Montgomery, you're going to spend 2 of your most premium assets on a running back? I don't know about that one, Jim. Quinshon Judkins, I think, could easily go round 1. Would not surprise me. Might be RB1 when it's all said and done. But does Detroit need to spend another first-round pick on running back? What about a receiver? Some defensive help. I would not like a running back pick when there's already Jahmyr Gibbs. You want to have 2, I get that. Maybe don't spend 2 first-round picks on it. Bengals take Denzel Burke here out of Ohio State. Now, I would assume Cam Taylor-Britt goes nowhere, and he ends up being your number 1 corner. Maybe the Daxton Hill, DJ Turner combo doesn't work on the outside. One of them plays nickel. Josh Newton was only a 5th-round pick, so I'm fine with it. This would be, though, 5 first-round picks for Ohio State. That's 1 shy of the record for most first-round picks from the same school in the same year. We've done this road before. I've seen some mock drafts where 8 first-round Ohio State players go. This is in previous years, and they had like 3, by the way. How many OSU players actually go in round 1? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. The Bills at 29 go with Jonah Savnaia out of Arizona, the offensive tackle. You've got Deion Dawkins. Maybe the Spencer Brown experiment ends. No complaints there. So the Ravens take the 3rd safety in this mock draft, Xavier Wampa. It's kind of like the Yeti creature from Star Wars. That's kind of how it's pronounced. Not quite 1-to-1, but it's pretty close to it. You have Kyle Hamilton. Maybe you're not going to maintain Marcus Williams long term. Okay. I'd be kind of shocked if 3 receivers went in the, or 3 safeties went in the 1st round. I'm convinced this mock draft is trolling me, by the way. Trey Harris. Another friggin' what? No, what are we doing here? This doesn't make any sense. The Niners have too many wide receivers already. They're not spending another first-round pick on one. I like Trey Harris. Yeah, it could be an early-round pick. Wouldn't surprise me. Another wide receiver? Really? I get it's a way too early mock draft. Man, guys, we got to pay more attention to who we're mocking where. I do not understand that at all. The Chiefs at number 32 overall. This would be, by the way, the 3rd first-round pick on their edge rusher depth chart. They've also got Mike Dana in there. Charles Menu were not first-round picks. George Karlaftis, Felix Enudike-Uzama, 2022, 23, and 25 first-round picks at edge. Princely Umon I actually like him a lot at the Florida to Ole Miss transfer. It's edge, it's premium position, but it's little interesting to me there. So who did USA Today leave off of their 2025 NFL mock draft? There are some names I want to mention. Let me know in the comments section. Now, we'll start mostly with offense here. Some notable players on the board. Offensively, couple good receivers, I would argue, led by Deion Burks. 2 offensive linemen I think could very well get top 15 buzz. Ernest Green, Emory Jones. Tyler Booker left off the board. If you factor out the quarterbacks, as they look like the number 1 pick odds from people out there, so it's James Pierce, it's Will Campbell, it's Michael Williams. Wasn't in round 1. And I get that the number 1 pick is a little strong for me. But to not put him in round 1, one of us is going to look really dumb a year from now. I'm a little surprised he wasn't in there. Other defensive players, I've got to go to 30. Kenneth Grant, if he plays well, will be a top pick. Other defensive linemen, Walter Nolan, Shamar Turner. I mentioned, maybe you shouldn't have gone edge. Landon Jackson, Patrick Payton, it's a good edge class, by the way. Landon Jackson had a great game against Alabama. A little quiet beyond that. Got to do more for him. He's got great size. Peyton was really good for Florida State last year. Plenty of good edge rushers and defensive players, it seems, in the way too early mock draft. So grade the Christian McCaffrey extension before we sign off here on today's show. A, B, C, D, or F. Brandon was surprised the Texans went edge. Hunter's only on a 2-year deal, so I at least get that angle. I probably gone a different position, but it's the USA Today mock draft, not mine to be clear. But at least get it, because timing-wise, you actually draft him then. You eventually pay Will Anderson. Other guy is cheap. You could then pay the other guy as Anderson contracts. You kind of balance those big numbers and the big cash flows properly there. So I kind of get it. So A, B, C, D, or F grade that Christian McCaffrey extension. Before we sign off here, if you haven't already, please make sure you guys are subscribed. YouTube.com/chatsportstv. Next live show, at least the big one, will be Thursday. NBA Finals watch parties. Do not miss out.